Hey, this is Pastor Bob with Senior Insights. With a topic we don't talk about a lot, but we need to. We put it to the back of our thoughts. Maybe we even kind of block it out like it'll never be an issue to decide what to do about someday. However, the day may come when we're forced to make a big decision. This big decision. What happens if our spouse or somebody we love that's close, a parent, maybe even a child, whatever the circumstances are, has to enter a long-term care facility? Let's talk about that on today's Senior Insights. I had a long talk with a dear friend this week who had been forced to place her husband into a long-term care facility, lockdown facility, because of dementia problems. And bless her heart, she's been taking care of her husband. Let's just call him Bob and call her Ann. Ann has been taking care of Bob for years. He was becoming harder and harder to care for because of this form of dementia he had. It just slowly became worse and worse, and he was becoming harder to take care of at home. She was by herself, and Ann had come home from a run to the market one day, and when she got home, she found him. He tried to take a bath and had fallen in the tub and was just unable to get out. And he was quite agitated, and Ann was unable to help him since he was so upset. And bless her heart, she's like me, she's a little older. It was just hard to do. She finally had to call the fire department for help. But the incident brought to the head the need of a different level of care was going to be needed. So she took Bob to a doctor and was told that for her safety and for Bob's safety, that it was time to place him in a long-term care facility, a place where he could be cared for 24 hours, secure because it's locked down. He couldn't get out and wander the neighborhood and hurt himself, and they would provide all the things he needs. And bless her heart, she had some precious friends from her church family who assisted her in making the move. They helped Ann contact a good local care facility that had I've been there, it's a pretty good area for dementia patients. And her doctor had given her some mild sedative to kind of calm Bob down during this transition. And so she gave him some, she drove around a little while in the car while these friends moved some of Bob's things to the care facility. It's always easier if the patient is kind of familiar with some of the things in the new environment, in their new room. And then when Ann and Bob finally arrived, the workers kindly took care of Bob, and they asked Ann and the workers, the friends, to just go ahead and leave. It would be easier on Bob. He's having a hard time understanding what's going on here. So their presence may have made Bob's transition more difficult. After years together, Bob is now separated from Ann, and Ann separated from Bob. Maybe a little hope of things changing. It's a sad story, but what could she do? It had to be done, and she had to make that hard choice. And as hard as it is to hear the story like this, Bob is safe, being well cared for. His condition's not going to get better, and he'll most likely never return to the private home to live with Ann. But now, dear Ann is still suffering. She feels guilty for having given up this caretaking business of Bob, even though she just couldn't do it. And she's afraid to go visit him for fear it'll upset him even more, and he'll get even more confused and maybe even upset her. And as reasonable as that is, she just feels guilty for not going, not visiting. And she has even well-meaning friends who keep telling her, "Oh, you need to go do that. You need to." But they've not been there, and they don't understand how hard this is on dear Ann. Other friends are assuring her that she's done the right thing. Some are telling her she should have kept Bob at home and just taken care of him there, although they hadn't volunteered to come help. And although Ann needs this encouragement and support from her church family, from neighbors, from friends, she doesn't need the criticism. It was a hard decision to make. And I tried to be more of a supporter of this decision. I mean, Bob had reached a level of care, and she's done this for years for this dear man. And now he needs this more protective care. And she's safer where he is. She couldn't keep up. She just couldn't be there 24 hours a day watching him. And even then, he sometimes would sneak out of the house or slip out of the house. He's safe. And so she's better off, and Bob is better off. And those that are telling Ann that she made a poor, uncaring choice, I think they're just plain wrong. We live in a blessed age where we have options to take care of loved ones. And we're given these choices for their good and for our good. And none of us will have to, I just pray none of us will have to make a decision like Ann was forced to make. But if you know that someone has had to do it, or if you have to do it, try to be understanding. Try to be loving with your comments to that other person. Try to not let somebody's comments to you, if you're the one that had to do it, hurt you, because any of us could someday be in a familiar situation, something similar. And it may be time, or at least a time, when we're helping our loved one more by just turning loose and letting him be in a safe place. So love and joy family while you can. Tomorrow could be completely different for any of us. So while you're still able, talk about the remote possibility that you might have to do something like this. Sit down with your loved one and discuss it. Sit down with family, children, and siblings, and whoever's around, and friends, and talk about it with them, so that if this situation comes up, and hopefully it would just be temporary, but if not, like this case, long-term care is required. And discuss it with them so they understand what's going on. There are insurance policies that aren't terribly expensive that help with long-term care. Maybe you need to look into one of those. But I pray you never have to use one. However, we all know, maybe because we live longer, because of they've come up with ways to help with heart disease and other things that would take us earlier, and people live longer. Maybe that we hear more of people with this kind of a problem. But let's talk about it with your friends now and your family. Then when somebody left at home has had to make this decision, they won't be feeling guilty about doing it. Just as some of these videos show us the need to make pre-planned funerals, and much to my surprise, most people don't want to consider that. They don't want to talk about that. But they need to. And if all these things are discussed and planned in advance, it makes it so much easier. It takes the burden off the loved one that's having to make the decisions. Whatever type of care is required, it just needs to be arranged in advance. Maybe, hopefully, not ever used in this case. Also, talk about it with your family so they know what to do if it ever comes up. My precious wife is going to be with the Lord, and I'm here by myself, except for a dog. I have to talk to my sons and explain to them, this is what you need to do. Don't Don't feel guilty about it. I mean, do what you feel like is required. If, like I said the other day, if you think it's time for me to quit driving, I may never agree, but you make it happen. If you think I need to be moved from here because it's not safe, you make it happen. They know to do that. So talk about it. And let's try just to love one another. Remember, Jesus said, I'm giving you a new commandment. Love each other just as I've loved you. And your love for one another will prove to the world that you're my disciples. When this happens and you know somebody that's had to deal with a situation like this, they need your love. They don't need to be second guessed. Let's try to be an encouragement to our family, with friends, if they're faced with such hard choices. Oh, and email me if you have thoughts about this. I'd like to hear about them. Stay safe and healthy, and have a Christ-centered new year that we're entering into. This is Pastor Bob. Now let's close with our weekly blessing. Oh, may the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord just smile on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord show you his favor and give you his peace. Peace even at a time like this for dear Ann. A peace that we need can maybe only come from the Lord Jesus. He wants us to take care of our loved ones. God bless you. Have a good week.